Hello folks, you're all very welcome back to the Celtic Soul Podcast. I'm Andrew Milne, and today on the show I'll be chatting to Bazz Reilly. Bazz hails from my hometown, he's one of my closest friends, and his journey through life saw him emigrate to London in his late teens, and after attending the World Cup in Japan, he opted to move back and set up a new life there after falling in love with the country. He's a QPR fan, he's an Ireland fan, a DJ, and he even finds time to write and translate songs for Japanese band The Solution. With the Euro finals in London, the trouble on the streets, and the ongoing racist attacks on players, no one is better placed to chat about that city, football violence, and institutionalised racism, which Bazz has encountered throughout his life in different forms. Folks, thanks for the continued support. As you know, no Patreon, no paywall here, it's all free content. And if you are enjoying the podcast and you can afford it, please hit the donate button on our homepage at celticfanzine.com, and for as little as the price of a pint, we can continue to grow the podcast and our other independent media platforms as we enter our 20th season producing independent Celtic fan-driven media. We're also looking for episode sponsors, and I thank all those who reached out to us this week and committed to sponsor us for the upcoming season. So if you haven't reached out to us yet and you're thinking about it, please get in contact and we'll pencil you in for one of the episodes. And we're also looking for sponsors for the fanzine, and once again we thank those who have contacted us this week and are coming on board again for another season. And all our advertisers have the benefit of advertising across all our platforms: video, audio, the fanzine, both print and digital, social media, and across our website. We're fully fan funded and sponsored by Celtic minded businesses, Celtic supporters clubs and individuals who share our values. For more information you can contact us through the website, on social media, or you can email us at info@celticfanzine.com. And if you visit the website, as I said, celticfanzine.com, you can also support us by becoming a member, buying some of our merch or a fanzine, subscribing or donating for the price of a pint. And you get all that information when you visit the website. And you can also check out our online store where you pick up some t-shirts, badges and merchandise. Well, the last day of the Euros brought some nervous tensions as Italy beat England on penalties. What happened on the day, before, during and after the game has been spoken about maybe more than the actual football played on the pitch. And, you know, when we look back, it was an amazing championship, one of the best in years, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. But let's face it, what we witnessed on our TV screens and across social media wasn't surprising. But look, I'll get into that more when I chat to Bazz. We continue working on the fanzine, folks. As I said in previous episodes, 115 sold out, and we still have the digital copy which you can download if you want to get your hands on that. And if you don't want to miss a copy, please subscribe, and you can subscribe for as little as $5.99. And if you subscribe for 12 issues of the print edition, we'll throw in a free t-shirt. Well folks, I'm starting to see light at the end of the tunnel for myself and my fellow Celtic fans as we long for a return to Celtic Park to see the boys in the flesh after a virtual nightmare last season. 2,000 lucky fans will be inside the stadium as Celtic take on Preston North End in the final game ahead of the big Champions League qualifier against FC Midtjylland from Denmark, which will be Ange Postecoglou's first real test as Celtic manager. Unfortunately, on Saturday, I won't be one of the lucky fans inside the stadium. I'm a little jealous, but I wish them all the best. Enjoy every minute and take in everything because you're so lucky to be going back. Some people say, oh, it's only a friendly. Yeah, they're back in paradise. Enjoy. David Turnbull, it'll be his first chance to get feel for Celtic fans in the stadium as a player, and he told the fan media press conference this week that preparations have been going really well under the new manager, who he's enjoying working with. And although he hasn't had a one-on-one conversation with him as yet, he smiled and gave little away when I asked him if Ange had hinted who his starting 11 would be come next Tuesday evening at 7:45 in Glasgow. But as I said, he just gave a little smirk. But I think the senior players who are going to feature will they'll definitely be in the minds of the manager, and they'll definitely have a fair idea if they're going to start in that game, because you know there's a couple of players heading out and there's a couple of new ones coming in, and plenty of rumours going around. But I'd like to see a bit of experience coming in, and I think a lot of Celtic fans feel the same. So hopefully with the money that we're expected to get from the players, Christie are lined up for moves, and it looks like Eddie could be on his way as well. But hopefully we don't lose the French striker. But if we do, hopefully the money's invested and a bit of experience comes in. Over here, look, folks, we're now getting the COVID travel certs, and we just can't wait to get back to Glasgow. Getting that cert in your inbox or in your letterbox, it's just such another positive step as we reach out to get that goal of getting back into the stadium. And not only that, but hooking up with our mates from Glasgow and going for a pint and a bite to eat and putting your head down in a hotel pillow, and just things that we took for granted for so long. Even queuing up in an airport's going to be a pleasure. In Scotland, you're ahead of us over here in Ireland. The First Minister, Nicola Sturgeon, she's outlined her plans, and the plan on lifting the COVID restrictions, which allows, as I said, 2,000 fans back into Celtic Park. But with the game on Tuesday, reports are that Dominic McKay, our new CEO, will be submitting an application to get 20,000 fans back into Celtic Park on Tuesday night. Wow, can you imagine being one of them? I can't see it, but I hope I'm wrong. But August the 9th is the date that hopefully the majority of restrictions will be lifted in Glasgow. And if we can believe reports, there could possibly be a full house when we take on St Mirren on August the 21st. It's hard to imagine that now after what we've been through, but you can't help but getting excited. And maybe I am jumping the gun, but look, we'll wait and hope. Bazz Reilly hails from my hometown Drogheda. He's one of my closest friends. His journey through life saw him emigrate to London in his late teens. And after attending the World Cup in Japan, he decided, I've had enough of partying in London and it's time to set up a new life in Japan, where he did. Ended up getting married, having kids, but now he's back settled in Ireland. But look, I'll leave him to tell the story. A QPR fan, an Ireland fan who I've enjoyed plenty of games with, a DJ who I've enjoyed plenty of sets with, and in his spare time he finds time to write and relay songs for Japanese band The Solution, who will play us out today. With the Euros final in London last weekend, the trouble on the streets and the ongoing racist attack on players, no one is better placed to chat about that city, football violence and institutionalised racism, as Bazz has encountered it throughout his life in different forms. Bazz, you're very welcome to the Celtic Soul Podcast, and you're my first guest that has been interviewed in the studio, not online. It's great to have you in the flesh in our HQ, and in the studio, of course, Bazz is the title of a Specials AKA album. Jerry Damer's song from the same band brought Nelson Mandela to our attention when we listened to Free Nelson Mandela and we read the sleeve notes in kitchens as kids or young teenagers. It was ska music and the two-tone movement that politicised us without really knowing it. We were only, as I said, young teenagers at the time. Do you think those early years formed your opinion on people, no matter what colour or creed they were? Because, Bazz, when we grew up in Drogheda, it was predominantly a white Catholic town with high unemployment, a great music scene, and the pubs were packed.
Yeah, you're dead right on that one, Andrew. Andrew, let me say, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me. But that certainly were formative years for me, based around that music scene. White Catholic town is absolutely what it was. Became involved and loved it for what it was as a music and a fashion scene. Nothing else. Didn't realise the enormity of it. Music and fashion was what it was all about, and that was what I got into it for. And in hindsight, looking back, it certainly set me up for life and the way I've lived life and viewed life and experienced it everywhere I've been since then.
Yeah, and back then in Ireland, we had the League of Ireland and there was no Premier League, but we had Match of the Day and the big match. We didn't have 24/7 coverage like the kids have today. So going along to see Drogheda was a big thing, especially when an English club came to town, Bazz, and QPR came to town for a friendly, and from that day you supported that London team. Can you tell us a little about that and the Irish connection to the club?
Well, I'll tell you everything about it, Andrew. And it started long before QPR came to town. Football, before the music scene for me, football was always there. I can't remember a time when football wasn't the biggest thing in my life. And Drogheda United was where it started for me. And I can remember every Sunday, match day, Sunday dinner at home in Mel. And as soon as that was finished, gathering started. Now I'm talking of a large gathering, anything up to 12, say, lads. Now I'm very young at this stage. This could only have been, I hope I'm right, 76, 77, 78. And heading off to the Lord's Stadium to watch Drogheda United, yeah? With my older brothers and much older lads, obviously. I would have been one of the youngest. But I can remember clearly, and I asked my brother earlier on this week how that actually happened. We used to arrive at a house in Bazz Reilly, It wasn't a family member, I know that for sure. I won't even mention the name in case I get anybody into trouble, but we used to parade in 12 lads from Mel into their house, sitting room, table set, having Sunday dinner, and we would go single file through the living room, into the kitchen, out into the back garden, and across the wall into the Lord Stadium. And this happened every second Sunday, every home game, yeah? And even then, I can remember jumping that wall, the canteen where they sold the coffees, and that was on the left, Bridie, I forget her second name. And on the right was the dressing rooms. And the first thing that would hit me back then was the smell of winter's green from the players in the dressing room. And I have an addictive nature, and I was hooked there and then that day. And those early days, every Sunday or every match day, into the Lord Stadium for Drogheda United. So I can only accurately estimate those years, because that led on to 1979 then, when Drogheda United moved from the Lord Stadium to United Park, and the first game on that pitch in that new stadium was Drogheda v QPR. I was 9 years old, 1979, and that's where the QPR angle started. First professional outfit I'd ever seen, I guess, in the flesh. And again, I was just hooked. It didn't take much. QPR won 1-0 that day, goal by Clive Allen, Steve Wicks, Phil Parks, players like this. I'll never forget it, you know. And so, yeah, I was hooked from that day forward. And I knew at the time, every kid I knew was a Liverpool and Man United supporter. And I knew I didn't want to be that. Glory hunter was a word we used to use in the day, but that was for a player on the pitch who wouldn't pass the ball and wanted to score all the goals himself, yeah. But I've grown to look at most of them, the normal, ordinary fan of the top teams, as glory hunters, you know. So I chose a life where I was born to suffer, QPR to this day, yeah. So that's where it began, and I'm still there now. But it was then, years later, when I chose to leave Drogheda, that those were the two things that I wanted from London, was music and football. We luckily, as you say, grew up around the two-tone scene. Jerry Dammers, bands like The Specials and Madness and the likes. And, you know, by the time I left Drogheda in 1990, those, you know, those bands had broken up, and that scene had finished its wonderful few short years, but they were still playing in one form or another in live in London, and that was good enough for me. If I could get that, I was going to have it, and if I could get QPR on the weekend. So those were the two things which made me move to London back then, yeah. So the two dominant factors in my life, music and football, and they've been a good balance.
And Bazz, were you aware back then of the Irish connection with the club? Because obviously London is, you know, it's a massive Irish community now.
Yeah, I mean, I can't say that's what drew me to the club, you know. I've told you exactly how, you know, I came to support QPR and why I support it. Of course, then I quickly learned, but, you know, I knew back then you had the likes of Don Givens as players within the team. That was the only Irish connection, until I moved to London and experienced the scene around White City and Shepherd's Bush and the strong Irish community as well, yeah. So, but, you know, it wasn't something that made me choose, but I quickly learned it, and then, of course, quickly lived it as well, you know. So suddenly I was, you know, that was going back in the 50s and the 60s or whatever, like, you know, the strong Irish community there. But here I was doing it in the 90s, and it was just the same at a different time, like, you know. Yeah,
and I had the pleasure of going to a London derby with you when you took on the mighty Crystal Palace. Not the greatest game of football I was ever at, but a great day out, Bazz, and great crack in the pub right beside the ground.
Yeah, the Springbok. The Springbok is right outside you. You have the Springbok and the bookies in the chip shop and the off licence. A nice little parade of shops and all you need there. The Springbok, and if there's a few other pubs within striking distance that, you know, even back in the 70s, the players were the last ones to leave. Namely, Stan Bowles would have been the last one to leave the bookies at 10-3, 5-3 or whatever. And But yeah, the Springbok was always packed to the rafters in a good football pub on match day, yeah.
I think we were nearly last to leave that day.
We usually are, whatever it is, yeah.
And as I said, London called, you emigrated. I remember we gave it a great send-off, local ska band Trenchtown, and sadly we lost the lead singer Lezo during the pandemic, and it'd be a big loss to Drogheda and the Irish ska scene. But when you got over there, Baz, how did you find London? As we said, there's a huge Irish community. My own parents would emigrate in the 50s and return home then. But what was it, a culture shock, as I said, from coming from white Catholic Drogheda?
I wouldn't say exactly. I took it in my stride. I'd been a few times, obviously. I'd been over to matches and I'd been over to visit family and I'd been over to weddings as such. So, I'd had a good taste of it, and so I knew what I was going into, yeah, and I wanted all that, high octane, big city life, everything going on, gigs 7 nights a week, But yeah, in the sense that, I went over there and I stood on the terraces as it was at the time, at QPR at Loftus Road, and it's, suddenly you're thinking, because here's my man next to me and we're playing Man City, and Loftus Road, as you know, you're right on top of the pitch, you could nearly touch the player taking a throw in, or the player fouling your man right by the sideline, and you can hear them and they can hear you. But yeah, I could hear my fellow QPR fan 5 people away having a go at Niall Quinn when he came over and slid in for a tackle on the sideline. And I think it was it 92 European Championships. We'd failed to qualify out of the same group as England, and my fellow QPR fan is asking Quinn what's he doing in the summer, where's he going on holidays, and so having a slag, having a dig, and suddenly I'm in between my fellow Irishman and my fellow QPR fan, and who do I stand with here, so things like that, suddenly brought a different way of life home to you, yeah. And then on top of that, the music scene. So I'm going to gigs. Like yourself, I grew up as a skinhead in this small town of Drogheda, and it was simply about music and fashion. Politics never came into it. But, maybe after that QPR match that day, I'm going to a gig that night, and everybody in the place is dressed the same as me, and I thought we were all the same. The music we were listening to was the same, but I suddenly noticed people acting differently than me and speaking differently than me, and I just couldn't understand it. There was an ignorance there, like that we're all here for the same thing, and the band is mixed black and white, and we've all paid a tenner to come in tonight. So you paid a tenner to come in and hate these guys, I paid a tenner to come in and love them, and their music. So that was a big eye opener, Suddenly, life in London was very, very different than I had been in Drogheda, even though I was there for the exact same things and doing the same things. Yeah,
and obviously I've been over it, just so I know, the people you mix with in work and the people you mix with socially. Now, London, as I said, it's a melting pot of cultures, and you would have experienced so many different cultures through work and through your socialising. So, and all of those communities would have had to dealt with, racism on a daily basis, How did it play out for you, and, what was your experiences, Baz, in London as an Irish person, because when I think of when we went over to London, it was a real happy experience, because you're a real party person, happy-go-lucky, you can be serious, but generally, when work finished and we were in the pub or a club, it was all about enjoying yourself. There was no heavy conversation. And I even remember you telling me, make sure you watch Suggs' video in the song Camden Town, because that was a place you walked and hung out in. But, was there an undercurrent of anti-Irish racism. Did you experience it, or did you experience racism towards your work colleagues who had come from all around the world?
Yeah, for sure. You know, not just the anti-Irish, but yeah, I was aware of it all the time throughout my life. And, you know, now it seems to be getting publicised more, and it's, you know, it's throughout football now. And this is no great shakes or no big surprise to me, because for me it's always been there. It's just never been focused upon as much, yeah. Usually the anti-Irish was just done as a snide joke or a snide comment here and there, which I never accepted, I never put up with. You know, it could be around the canteen in work where the racism was disguised as a joke, as banter, yeah.
Institutionalised racism.
Absolutely, you know. And, you know, that's just on the Irish aspect. But you'd see it for other cultures and colleagues of mine. Again, like I went over there and I got immersed. I mean, I was at African weddings, Ghanaian weddings, and the whole lot. And you know, you go back to work, and most of the team, half of the team, shall we say, my direct work team, you know, they wouldn't have been invited to that wedding. They wouldn't have. Because they wouldn't have attended. They wouldn't have felt comfortable attending, yeah. But, you know, you can't feel comfortable going to work and working alongside a person if you can't socialise with them, like, you know. So it was always noticeable, you know. It was always noticeable. And then going back to the Irish aspect of it, it was pretty hectic times. I mean, I remember we used to come out of clubs down in the other side of the river in South London, and living in North London at the time, and we'd be making our way back, you know, it'd be 5, 6, 7 in the morning or whatever, and the Ring of Steel was in place then around the square mile of the city of London, because of things going on. And I was just always conscious of saying to my fellow Irish mates, you know, our guard is down, we're coming out of the club, we're after having a good night, and just kind of staggering home, if you like, but, you know, we're going to get stopped. Say nothing, just keep moving, say nothing, don't antagonise these people, don't give them a reason to take it any further, yeah. We're just going about our business, you know, we're no threat to you, leave us alone. But yeah, always conscious of it, and always aware, and I wouldn't say, you know, scared is not the right word, but, you know, things went on, and ordinary people could get fingered and lifted, like, you know, if something went wrong in the wrong area and you were in the wrong place at the wrong time. So it was something I was always aware of, yeah. Yeah,
because we had Tony Loughley on the podcast, whose father was killed on Bloody Sunday last week, and Tony spoke about the amount of people in the North and in England. He mentioned the Birmingham 6 and the Guildford 4, who are probably the high-profile ones. So, you know, there is an awareness, you know, sure. Wrong place. I remember Jerry Morgan, Lord of Mercy on him. Jerry's, you know, a local lad here, but a very good friend of mine. And when I went to see Ireland and Celtic, one of the founding members of St Margaret's, Jerry was in London for the FA Cup. Mad football fan. He'd brought his younger brother over. He was late getting in to London. He hired a car. He drove to Wembley. He parked up. He went to the game. He came out. And he made his way to his sister's house and said, "I'll pick the car up tomorrow." He obviously had a few drinks at the game, and he never got to his sister's house. He was lifted, him and his younger brother, and he was questioned for a couple of days, you know, and he couldn't tell them where the car was, but they had noticed a car being dropped off by someone who had come off and wasn't picked up, and and I think that something did happen in London that day as well, so. He arrived back into Dublin airport to be met by special branch and questioned again after, you know, and like it just goes to show you that even a visitor, you know, for something as simple as a cup final, you know, you can be fingered. So I know where I come from there, because I remember Jerry telling me the story, and it's kind of you listen to it with your mouth open.
Yeah, you know, it was real. It was real. Like, you know, it wasn't wasn't something to be scared of, like I say, but it was something to be wary of and cautious, you know, in those situations.
I have to say, I never had any problems like that. I remember, you know, so many great weekends in London. I remember we were over, it was actually before you moved over, Bazz, shortly before you moved over. We were over at a festival and we watched the Ireland-Romania game, 1990, in the Finchley Park Tavern, which was you know, close to your stomping ground. And because the game had gone to extra time and penalties, we were a bit late. We jumped on the tube and we got off the wrong tube stop, as you have to change on the way to Heathrow. But, you know, we quickly, you know, made amends, got back on the right line, and we just made it into Heathrow in time. And we were kind of panicking because back then, you know, flying was a big thing and we wouldn't have the money to change flights. And we got to the airport anyway, and, you know, obviously we were really happy with the Ireland win, and, you know, Packy Bonner saving the penalty, and O'Leary scored that day. So, but when we got to the Aer Lingus desk, they said, look, don't panic. We're waiting on the Fury brothers. They're on Wogan, you know, when you think of it. And then, but when we were going through, we did get pulled, and they did say to us, why were we running in such a tube? It was actually a train station, because you'd come out of the underground at the time before going back in. But yeah, so like that was...
yeah, why were you doing? You know, you're suspicious. No, I'm lost. I didn't know where I was going. I was running around.
But the fact that they knew, Bazz, when we got to, the fact that someone knew, which kind of was, and you know,
you're under surveillance.
Well, I don't know about surveillance, but certainly, like, it was an eye opener. But as I said, Bazz, so many weekends. Normally, I went over for festivals or gigs. It wasn't, you know, if we got a game of football in, it was a bonus. But
yeah, but that was the early days, Milish. Like you're saying, that was before I went over. And just even when I went over there as a QPR fan, London was huge. I didn't know my way around. I would have taken a wrong tube or a wrong train. I got off the wrong stop. I used to go. I went over and lived in Holloway Road, top of Holloway Road, the first when I moved to London. And just checking a rough map, I thought, right, Highbury's down the bottom of the road. That's where I'm going Saturday, yeah. And I used to walk to Highbury on a Saturday afternoon because London, QPR was West London, like, you know, jeez, I don't feel up to making it all the way over there yet, you know. So I'd walk down to Highbury and walk in, pay me 10 and 15 on the turnstiles and walk up and stand on the North Bank, like, you know. And I was happy enough going to Arsenal because of the strong Irish connection that I'd known about there through the players, Stapleton, O'Leary, Brady, and I think the first game actually I went to of Arsenal's over there in that style was against Oxford United, and Ray Houghton, our little friend, and John Aldridge were playing for Oxford United that day, like, you know, so, you know, it didn't matter to me as long as I could get to a game of football, you know, okay, I knew I'd get to QPR sooner or later once I found my way around, yeah, but yeah, I would have been, to get from North London to West London, the first week I'm living over there, I probably would have been running around getting lost and coming to the attention of the wrong people as well.
And maybe the Fury brothers would have been in Morgan that night as well. But Bazz, like, because I've spent some time in London and I've travelled a lot with Celtic, you know, I've seen Celtic play a good few English teams, and, you know, don't get me wrong, we're no angels. But I wasn't a bit surprised last week when I seen, you know, English fans, you know, attacking Italian fans inside Wembley, which is, you know, if reports are to be believed, the policing was non-existent. And, you know, I heard one commentator saying, you know, the crowd that was there was more of a Wimbledon crowd than a football crowd. And then, obviously, you know, people started, you know, breaking through the turnstiles, running through, and then that obviously led to, there was a lot of drink taken. I say there was a lot of cocaine taken during the day. So that led to, you know, the trouble. But it wasn't only Italian fans that were beating up, they were beating the shit out of each other. But, like, you know, we'll know, Bazz, because we've witnessed club rivalries, you know, outside football stadiums, but away from football stadiums, at gigs, and in London. And in particular, Bazz, I mentioned the Finchley Park Tavern there earlier, like a big Irish pub. I remember before one of the Madness gigs in Finchley Park, you know, it was around the time that the Three Lions song had come out, and I think England may have been going off to a major championship, and but you know, rather than, you know, them qualifying, rather than uniting the England's different sets of supporters, they were beating the shite out of each other outside the pub and along the streets the whole way up to the gig. And then when we got inside to the gig, you know, and that gig was brilliant. It was madness. Liverpool band Space, Catatonic from Wales, and
Ian Jury was on it as well, wasn't he?
I don't think Ian was on that one, Baz. I think it was Desmond Decker, Rico, and Tucson the Maytals, all Jamaican bands and all heroes of ours. And but
yeah, they were the Madstock gigs of the 90s. Madness's first return. But yeah, I remember that day. Because the cops actually come in and shut the pub down. We were in, the Finsbury Park Tavern. They come in and closed it down that day with the cameras on and everything, and moved us out of there and up there, yeah. But yeah, I'd been to there was a couple, 2 or 3 of the Madstock gigs, so I get mixed up on the lineups, yeah. I remember Morrissey was on the first one anyway, and he wasn't taken to too kindly anyway.
Yeah, but like so, you know, normally when you go to a music festival, you experience, you know, it's a lovely buzz, you know, there might be a bit of marijuana around. There's definitely going to be drink. So everyone's on a happy buzz. But I found, you know, in London that it was a horrible feeling before the gig. And then inside, Baz, I remember when the Jamaican bands were playing, you know, and these are musical heroes of ours. You know, they've been verbally abused, and there's people Zeke hurling at them at the front of the stadium. And you're saying to yourself, like, what the fuck are these people buying tickets for to come to these gigs? You know, multicultural gigs where 90% of the people are loving it, you know. And I remember there was a dance tent within it. I remember going, just popping in on my way, and the atmosphere was great. I was on my way to the beer tent. But, you know, coming back from the beer tent then, you know, there's fucking standoffs between different, you know, maybe West Ham fans and Chelsea fans, and you're kind of going, like, grow up, lads, you know. Yeah, do what you have to do on football days, but, you know, let us enjoy ourselves. So, like, you know, I never raised an eyebrow when I seen the scenes last week. And now, you know, we're going to open a pub up at 8 o'clock along Wembley Way. You know, and, you know, no one was checked for tickets.
For sure. I mean, last week was absolutely no surprise to me. There's nothing that happened that you know, was in any way a surprise. And I just think, you know, because nothing's changed. And I think the whole tournament, they all got caught up in this, that this time it's going to be different. This time it's going to be different, you know, we're winning, we're getting the quarters, we're winning, we're getting to the semis, we're winning, this time it's going to be different. Eventually it wasn't different, yeah. You know, they lost, and, you know, they were all riding a wave of optimism, and as soon as that was quenched, it just, well, even before that, even, you know, like they were outside the stadium beforehand, just bursting in, but, you know, it was always there. It's the underlying, you know it's going to happen. You've seen it, like you talked about it. We've experienced it, we've seen it, and a couple of wins is not going to change that. It's just going to kind of take the focus onto the good stuff only. And, yeah, so what happened in the aftermath, it's just really unfortunate. Like you say, you see them and just, you know, we all have moments where we might want to lose it or let go or whatever, but you look at the circumstances you're in and just hold on to yourself and, you know, give yourself a shake. But they're just incapable of this, like, you know, and it's sad to see, you know. I mean, even had England won last week, you know, if they deserve to win, I wouldn't have a problem with any football tournament. Any team that deserves to win it, I wouldn't have a problem. Now, hands up, I didn't wish for them to win it in any way at all. But, you know, we've got mates. We know people. We know good people, like, you know, and you wouldn't begrudge them, the good ones. But there's just too much of a bad element, and I don't see them ever shaking it off. You know, it's a lot of it is ignorance. You know, a lot of it's just pure ignorance of life and everything that goes on, and it just gets magnified in a football sense. You know.
Yeah, I think we dodged a bullet, Baz, because I think the England-Germany game would have been played in Dublin, the Aviva.
Oh, didn't realise that.
And like, you can imagine, like, you know, the melting pot that would have brought to the city, and especially with COVID and that. Like, so I think we possibly did dodge a bullet there. Because,
absolutely.
You know,
I really hadn't realised that, yeah.
Because there is a, like, as you said, like, we've got mates that we've met over the years and they would have been delighted for their country to win. Sure. But, like, I looked at that and I was going, you know, they're trying to rebrand it, you know, as a middle-class sport, you know. And as I said earlier on, like, one journalist was on about Wimbledon. Well, it's not Wimbledon. It's football, you know, and I can't defend any fan that, you know, what they done that day, and I wouldn't, because, you know, as I said, you know, I was, you know, I'm Irish, you know, I nailed my colours to the mast early. It was Italy for me, and before that it was Denmark. So, you know, I apologise to my English friends who are me decent English friends and family as well, but, like, it just, you know, if you're going to outprice people as well from going to football,
yeah,
you know,
yeah,
that's going to lead to trouble, you know. But I think on that occasion, it was certainly just, you know, drink, coke, you know, fellas that support different teams, you know. We've seen it, like, and, you know, what happens, and we've seen it before, we've seen it in Georgia Square with Rangers fans, we've seen Chelsea fans abroad, we've seen it with different teams. If there's no one to fight with, they'll fight with themselves.
Yeah, unfortunately that's it, and I just, you know, I don't see them shaking off. I mean, even fighting with themselves, I mean, like I say, just leave them at you. Never mind that so much, like, you know. But for the handful of Italian fans, you know, on a scale that was at that game, and for them to attack them, like, you know, again, the Italian fans are no angels, you know. Club level, they'll go away and they'll do their thing, like, you know. But it's just sad. It's a sorry state to see that, you know, at a low level, you know, crowd scale, England fans to Italian fans on Sunday night. But to see them just going at a few random stragglers coming through, it's just pathetic. Yeah, it's horrible.
Yeah, and it was always a kind of an unwritten rule that you know, the football hooligans, they fought football hooligans. Yeah. They didn't just, you know, attack normal fans. Yeah. You know, it was what, you know, whether people like it or not, that was a big part, especially in the 80s, you know. It was like,
so you were fighting with people who knew what was going on, knew it was coming, and knew if they were caught offside, they might get ambushed, you know. So, yeah, exactly.
But to randomly just, you know, kick someone's head in is just,
of course,
disgusting.
Yeah, but then on the whole, taking it to full scale, you know, football is not so much about real fans anymore, you know. It's an overpriced match, and like you say, you're comparing it to Wimbledon. So, you know, it's not the real fans like we're talking about back then, you know, who knew what they were there for. Now it's just trying to sell the product to a different audience, isn't it? Hoping that will change it, the bad element of it, as they see.
And Erin Boyle, who's been on the podcast, and young Glasgow poet, Erin, she wrote a poem about it, but she also wrote an article, it's on the website, about, you know, what she noticed, the whole corporate sponsorship thing and that, and it's not what she grew up from her father, and you know, from her father, you know, bringing her to Celtic Park and telling her, you know, the story of Celtic, and now all of a sudden she's surrounded by, you know, Coca-Cola, and, you know, it's all about selling, you know, to, like, the price of tickets, I believe, was just, you know, outrageous. But look,
yeah, but then, you know, even to get a chance to pay that price, you don't, you know, you get in a queue to have a chance to pay an extortionate price. Like, I mean, it's just simply no opportunity now. Like I spoke a minute ago of walking down the Highbury and through the turnstiles and paying your money and standing on the terraces. Like, you know, that's we're a long, far away shot from that now. All right, yeah,
100%. And the Euros was brilliant, Baz. You know, we spoke last Saturday night. We were lucky enough to be out in the beer garden. We were having a couple of pints, and, you know, we were with Levo, who's a Chelsea fan, and he was obviously talking about the Chelsea players that were going to be involved, and, you know, what a brilliant season they'd be having, whoever won. You know, I was saying, I think they've had a brilliant season already, you know, because from a Celtic point of view, we had a disaster. But, like, the Italians were the best team. you and Lev were a little worried about England. I wasn't so worried. I was saying no. But then at half time, I did send you a message saying, "Just I might have to eat me words." But look, they were the best team. I think they deserved to win the tournament.
I think England threw it away. And as I said to you, I thought Spain should have beaten Italy in the semi. Now, Spain, for me, were crap through the whole tournament. But yet, in that 90 minutes, they could have won it. And that's what I was fearful of. I thought England over 90 minutes could beat Italy on the day, one off. And I don't mind telling you now, they should have. They've nobody but themselves to blame, because half time I thought they had it sewn up a little bit more positivity and they could have won that game for me. Sure, 2-0, 3-0, but they didn't even try to, and so they didn't deserve to.
But look, over the tournament, the Italians,
fair enough,
they were probably overall the best team, and deserving winners. But the aftermath of that, Baz, we've had the 3 young English black players. That abuse has always been there. It was on the terrace, in the 70s when black players, started to play in England. It's still there now. It's in the spotlight because of social media and what have you. And we also had a mural defaced of a player who's really an example to young players who's made it. He's made money, but he's made his, he's working within the community and he's making a difference. But when I think back at the start of taking the knee, Baz, and we were having a conversation, and you were saying, this is only a token gesture. You were angry because, racism is there and taking the knee is not going to change these people's minds. And I think we saw that, Baz, where, although it's a good sign of solidarity, I think we saw that, where English fans booing the players, the whole setup in Hungary, is just, just leans, if it leans any more to the right, it'll fall over, and that seems to suit a lot of the former, I suppose, Eastern Bloc countries, because there seems to be a fairly, right-wing element within the support there. So, what's your thoughts on it now after seeing that,
Yeah, I mean, and it's funny, I remember that conversation we had in the beginning, when football came back after the lockdown and taking the knee, and I'll be honest, I didn't fully understand, because what I said to you was, I said, it's a waste of time. It won't change nothing. It won't do anything. Yeah. And you replied, but it's solidarity is what it's doing. I actually said it won't change anything, because the FA is one of the most racist movements anyway. Yeah. Within the FA. And I thought it was them that was actually, rather than the players themselves, I thought this was an FA, thing that was laying out for the players to do, Mark, before each game. So that made me more against it. So if the players are doing it and they choose to do it, that's fine. That's how I see it now. I still don't think it's going to have, it's not going to change anything. We can see that it hasn't changed anything, but if it's their decision to do it, then fair play, go ahead and do it. But I don't see it achieving, things have got worse since we had that conversation now. Yeah, things have got worse, not any better. So, it's going back to it again. It's institutionalized racism, and it's gonna take a lot to shift that. Yeah, it's horrible to see. It's unfortunate, and it's too easy. It's too easy for these people to just lash out, comment. Even sitting in the pub watching a match on the telly, it's too easy for them to make a racist comment at the TV like that. That sickens me more than that, and that's pathetic, And I've had this argument time and time again with people in the pub, calling them out on it there and then, just referring to somebody's colour and telling them, get up, he's after been fouled or he's after diving, get up, you, whatever, and but sure, I'd say it to my own player. I'd say it to my own, he's on that team. If he was on my team, I'd say it to my own player to get up. I said, but you wouldn't say get up, you white, so why would you say black, and they truly believe they're not doing nothing, saying nothing wrong. So how do you change that? Yeah,
it seems to be, and you also get, people saying, people are too sensitive now, but, that's okay. But if it's aimed at you, I'll tell you this much, I don't like being called a tick paddy. You know, I don't like anyone being called a thick Paddy, but that's a, you know, there's a stereotype, you know, that the Irish, you know, all we're good for is building roads, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you know, I think over the years we proved that, you know, that we're a bit more than that, Bazz. The Bazz, the World Cup, you know, as an Ireland fan, Japan and South Korea, you know, tell us about that journey and the start of your relationship with Japan, the decision to quit London. You know, because there's so many memories in London, Bazz, including some great nights DJing there. I remember cutting me teeth in those early years in your flat DJing, and then, you know, obviously a DJ that, you know, you encountered, you know, and enjoyed over those years was Tim Deluxe, and you saw him grow from DJing in the flat to headline the festivals around the globe.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, brilliant. I can't give you any definitive answers to that you might be seeking on my life, because I sum it up and it's the truth, and it's not a cop out. I mean, a happy accident is how I describe my life. You know, there was no great forward planning, and there was no, because I'm not that kind of on the fly guy, a chancer and a dancer, like, you know, and that's it. So, you know, like I moved to London. I just did it because I wanted football and music. There's nothing made me. I was having too good of a life. I love London. I love life in London, and I was having too good of a life. You know, I was burning the candle at both ends, to be honest with you. And I thought, I have to break this cycle, you know. And Japan fell into my lap, you know. I was going to Japan anyway for the World Cup, you know, for a holiday. And while I was out there, made some contacts, made some connections, and as you say, fell in love with my first impressions of the place was brilliant, and made some contacts, got discussions on work. Would you be interested in working out here, living out here? And straight away, where do I sign? Like, you know, I'll cancel my flight home. That wasn't the case. You know, the romantic story says that I went to the World Cup and never came back for 11 years. And I did actually come back, because it doesn't work like that in Japan. You need a visa. Officialdom needs to be recognised, and compliance and all this, the bad things about Japan. So yeah, I did move back to London, and waited for my visa to be sorted, and gave notice in my job in London, and went out to Japan. I, you know, again, on the fly, didn't have money for the first year. I didn't have money didn't have a 3-year plan, a 5-year plan, or nothing. Like, you know, if things don't work, well then London ain't going anywhere, so I'll just move back to London, like, if things don't work out. So yeah, just went and gave it a go, and not for any reasons only other than adventure, new adventure. 12 good years in London, and time for 10 years, 10 good years somewhere else, somewhere different. That was basically it. So, but yeah, it was a huge challenge. It was a huge, you asked me, I've already said the culture shock moving from Drogheda to London I took it in my stride, you know. It wasn't massive, although it was a whole different way of life, of course, but I took it in my stride. I moved to Japan, and that was a culture shock. I wasn't living in Tokyo. I wasn't in the big city. I wasn't in the places that I'd experienced while I was there having fun during the World Cup. I was living out in the countryside. I was at the bottom of a mountain, further in the countryside than this comparison, but the equivalent basically of the Battle of the Boyne site, the last major samurai battle of Japan. Sekigahara was, you know, the next stop on the train from me. So I was in the middle of nowhere, and I was the only non-Japanese more or less in that area. So, you know, everybody knew me and I knew nobody, and basically didn't speak the language. You know, went to work with a full Japanese workforce who, again, countryside. If I had been in the big city, you would have a few people that would speak an element of English, or, you know, but where I was, there was nobody speaking English, you know. They would do a Japanese version of country bumpkins, like, you know, really. And yeah, it was tough. 6 months in, I really questioned myself. I thought, I don't know if I can do this. You know, I'm not a quitter, and I certainly didn't want to walk away or give up on it, but the language barrier was huge. The language barrier was massive. And on top, you know, and all aspects of the culture. Now, again, where I was living, there wasn't a pub in sight. Yeah, so I couldn't go to the pub. I was going to work. I was working a long shift all day and going home. Going back to work the next day, going home, switching on the telly. 40 channels. Going flicking through them all. Don't understand that. Oh, sports. Oh, I'm on the sports channel. Baseball. Don't understand that. Carry on. Couldn't watch the telly. I ended up actually going back to baseball. I picked this up quicker than anything else, and did become a baseball fan while I was over there. You know, it was on 6 nights a week. There was baseball on the telly, like. But yeah, it was really tough. It was really tough, and a couple of things happened. The same, within a week of each other, 2 weekends, there was a local festival where they're carrying the mikoshi, the wooden shrines, and around the village, which is all alcohol based, like, you know, fueled, alcohol driven, like, you know. But yeah, I couldn't get involved, you know. I wasn't really involved, you know, but I went out the back of my house that evening, and there was a house at the back of mine, which they were having a barbecue, and it was all young people who had been carrying the shrines, taking part in the festival, and living there with their parents and their friends gathering. They seen me, they called me over and put a can of beer in my hand, and then put a glass, put a shot in my hand with the beer, you know, a beer and a chase, all right, lovely. Oh, Jesus, what's that? Oh, it's Nihonshu. What the fuck is Nihonshu? It's, sake, the first time I'd ever tasted sake. Now, I drank everything in my life, but I'd never drank anything that tasted like that, you know. It didn't taste like whiskey, vodka, brandy, nothing, you know. It just tasted completely different. I don't think I can drink that, you know, but by the end of the night I was swallowing a good old, like, you know. But suddenly there was, I'd say, about 30 people at that barbecue that night, and they ranged from 16 to 76. And within a couple of hours, I'm sitting under the stars, and everybody is stocious drunk, like, you know. They're all locked, they're falling around the place, and it was just a part of Japanese culture that I hadn't witnessed in 6 months. I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen that wildness that I'd grown up with, that madness beautiful madness that I love, you know. And all of a sudden, you know, I seen things shift, and, like, you know, going back to the pub, there wasn't a pub within striking distance, a pub as we know it, or a bar even, yeah. I used to get on a train and go into Nagoya, which is Japan's fourth city, if you like. But about 55 minutes on a train, I used to go for a pint. You know, that's, and then I'd have to get the same journey back home. Like, there's no fun in that, like, you know, but, so yeah, that happened, and then I got wind of an all day, the following Sunday, an all day live punk gig, 6 bands playing, and I walked into that again. I'm the only non-Japanese guy in the place, and the first band was on, and young 17, 18, you know, and it's just noise, but still I was happy to be there, and I was descended upon by these guys, you know. You know, who are you? Again, stilted conversation of broken English, broken Japanese. Where you from and what you doing here? And they were on to me straight away. They knew the area. They were locals and knew where I was working, knew my company. And, you like punk music? You like it? You know, yeah. I said, I grew up with punk music, you know, and it's good. I said, not like these boys here now. I said, but this is like Sum 41, or, you know, bands like this, I guess, is their influence. And I said, I'm talking about original UK punk, and yeah, we too, we're the same. We influenced original UK punk, you know. I said, oh really? Yeah, like who? What kind of bands? And Slade. And okay, bit of glam rock going on here, like, you know. But they're never far wrong, the Japanese. I mean, Slade actually came out of Wolverhampton as a punk band originally, you know, so there was a bit of lost in translation, but a lot of truth in it as well, yeah. So yeah, they were headlining, and they went on, they were brilliant, good band, good tight sound. Lead singer came in, and they told me they were singing in English and that beforehand, but I couldn't tell what they were singing. I couldn't, you know, could have been Gaelic. I had no idea. It just wasn't clear, and we spoke afterwards. They wanted to know what I thought, and I said, yeah, great band, great sound, but no disrespect, your vocal comes in, takes the focus away from the band for me, like, it's just, I can't tell what you're singing, like, and he says, help me, so started looking. I looked at their lyrics. We used to, from that moment, me and him sat down every Tuesday night and worked on vocals, worked on lyrics, and looked at the existing lyrics. I said, who writes this shit? He said, I do. I said, no, you don't. You don't speak English. You can't. No, he said, I write in Japanese. I take the translation company and they translate. And I said, oh, okay. How much are they charging you per song? He says, go send yen, 5,000 yen. I said, right, I'm your man. I'll do it for 4,000 yen, So direct translation doesn't work anyway. This is what I'm explaining to him, It's back to front. It's ass about face and it's polite Queen's English, if you like. You're a punk band, you can't be singing that. So, that's, again, accidentally how, not something I ever considered myself, but I became a songwriter, a singer-songwriter, and again, always kind of felt a bit of a fraud, but it worked for them, and we still work together now. They're a brilliant bunch of lads, but they saved me, that, like those 2 weekends. And next weekend and every weekend after that, suddenly I'm doing the music scene. I'm travelling around with them who are established on the scene in Japan.
And that's the solution.
That's the solution, yeah. And just changed everything for me. I was still living in a place with no pubs, and when I say it wasn't a case that you couldn't get a drink, there were restaurants. So people from, oh no, we take it to the pub. Let's go to pub Saturday. Okay, we go to pub. We walked in and go, this is not a pub, lads. This is a restaurant. This is not somewhere I come on my own and just for drink. I have to eat. I have to have food. And the only person you're going to talk to in here is the waiter. I want to come in, sit down, and have 10 new friends before I leave, which I would do anywhere else in the world. But suddenly I was doing a live music scene in Japan, and that. Yeah, broadened everything for me, really, yeah.
Yeah, and sticking on the music, you managed to... There was a festival coming off, and a big festival, something like, I suppose, the Japanese Glastonbury, and you're scrolling through...
Yeah.
See, who, if you're going to go, Ocean Colour Scene are on the bill, so I know you like them, so, you've seen them, yeah, worth going to see them. And then you see... an old name that pops up, and that's Tim Deluxe, another Irishman, a mate. But he's now a superstar. And for people that don't know Tim Deluxe, if you heard of Fatboy Slim, when he done the famous gig on Brighton Beach, it's one of Tim's tunes that he opens with. And Tim has gone on to be a big time producer now as well. I think he's finished on the DJ circuit. But how did you reach out to Tim, because you hadn't been in contact with him for years?
It's funny you bring that up, actually. I wouldn't have thought of it. I'm saying nothing happened, so nothing was happening in my life in Japan then, but that was probably the third weekend, the following weekend. I was looking for a breakout. I needed a blowout. I was about to give up 6 months into my time in Japan, and we're hitting the summer, and I was sitting with Carrie. And I'm saying to Carrie, I said, listen, I need a festival, there must be some music festivals over here, and she said, yeah, Fuji Rock Festival, that's the biggest gig in Japan during the summer, yeah, get it up there on the laptop, let's have a look and the scrolling. And first thing I noticed was the price anyway, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and noticed the price, and Jesus Christ, you need a mortgage to go to a festival over here. The prices was outrageous, but anyway, it's not going to be a factor. That's not going to stop me going if it's worthwhile, And so, yeah, huge. It's probably bigger than Glastonbury even, lots of stages, lots of tents, lots of activity, and I'm going through each one. And you mentioned Ocean Colour Scene. The funniest thing was they weren't on it when I looked. They weren't there. And I went through the whole lot. Elvis Costello was on, a little bit of a tick there for me. There was I can't even remember the headlining act who, they didn't appeal to me whatsoever, not enough to spend that kind of money. And Just kept searching and through the red marquee, the dance tent, and I'm scrolling down through that, the DJs, and hang on, go back up there for a second. Tim Deluxe. Oh, nice one, I said to her. I said, that's it. That's my mate. That's my buddy. We're going. We're on it, And no, again, happy accident. Yeah. No mortgage, no big ticket fees. I says, if I can make contact with Tim, who's back in London. He's actually born in Portrush, Tim, but he worked with his dad. That's how I knew him. But if I can make contact with him, that's it. We're going and we'll be on the guest list. I said, we won't be paying nothing, And she's like, who's this mad Irish, asking me, is there somewhere to go? Knows nothing about Fuji Rock Festival.
Just stopping you, Baz. That's your wife, Kerry, who we will get back to, okay?
Okay.
Because there's another story now.
Okay. There's lots of them, yeah. But I'm glad you're remembering them. But yeah, I just said, all I need, and she's like, look at me, are you serious? You never heard of Fuji Rock Festival 5 minutes ago, and now you think you're on the guest list, and I said, listen, babe, that's the way my life works. It's as simple as that. If I don't have a direct contact for Tim. If I can reach him and get a conversation going, well, I'm on it. I said, he's a mate, he's a friend. There's no other way it's going to work out, but she still didn't. Put the feelers out to the lads back in London because Tim was flying. He was on the pig's back by then. Another beautiful story. I seen him break. His first gig he got was in the Ministry of Sound. They were short one night at 6:00. And it just lifted from there, snowballed. So he was playing Miami, he was playing Rimini. He was, you wouldn't see him. That's why I didn't have contact for him. So put the feelers out, managed to get email contact with Tim, and he's gone, yeah, Baz, yeah, I'm on, but I'll be arriving over that Friday. He said, I won't know nothing till I get there, and I'll try and find out with my agent before then what I have, guest list, how many, and the whole lot. But, I won't really have any concrete confirmation for you until I arrive there on the Friday. He said, but, take it as a given. You're on it. It'll be sorted, yeah? So I'm telling him, Carrie's like, just, she's not buying this at all anyway, yeah? We get to that weekend and spoke with Tim. He arrived in on the Friday. He was playing. He was getting picked up and he was heading up there and playing on the Saturday night. And I said, right, you go ahead, because I was still in Nagoya. Flew into Tokyo. He was getting picked up and driven up there. And I said, right, I'll see you up there. We'll head up. But all the way, the journey we made there, and she's like, Carrie's trying to book a hotel. So this is in a ski resort. The Prince Naiba Hotel was the only hotel in the area, but it was given over to artists playing Fuji Rock Festival, so the public couldn't book a room there or anything. So it was a bus shuttle journey and the whole lot. And I'm saying, fuck all that. I said, we'll stay in Tim's room. And she's like, are you really, I don't think, I hope you've got money for tickets going over here. She said, now you're telling me we're going to stay in an artist room. I said, look, will you stop this artist bullshit? He's my mate, And so got in contact with him that day. He said, yeah, go to the main, beside the main gate, there's a tent there. Guest list is there, you're on. He'd asked me how many do you want. I said, just Bazz plus one, and he said, you can have 15, because he had a guest list of 15, but he didn't know anybody in Japan, So, no, Bazz plus one will do for now anyway. I didn't even have that many friends myself. But, yeah, we got there and Carrie the whole way just wasn't having this, Carrie is 100% or everything has to be, done in advance and sorted in advance, I hope you have money with you. And yeah, boom, guest list. Yeah, whose guest list is it? Yeah, Tim Deluxe. Yeah, Bazz plus one. Yeah, Bazz, okay. And actually hanged it around our neck, yeah. Access all areas, Carrie couldn't believe it. Carrie was amazed. But, yeah, as I say, the Ocean Colour Scene wasn't on that gig. That was the following year. 2 years later, Tim played Fuji Rock again. And I went by myself. I met him in Tokyo and we drove up there, and on the Friday, again, Beastie Boys was headlining that year, yeah? they were in their 50s at the time, like, you know, but
like us.
But I'd seen then on the back end of Ocean Coliseum were playing a 5:30 on a Friday evening, you know, which was, what's the story? This is the best band in the whole weekend for me, and 5:30 on a Friday, what's the story there? But I went down to watch the man, who actually dragged Tim with me, you know, because we got up there and we had to meet regular company people the people that brought him over, like, you know, and spend some time with them. And I'm like, come on, Tim, I want to go and see this band. So we went and seen them. Brilliant, good set, great, never let you down, you know. And we're heading back. We were on the sauce and we were lashing out. He was playing at midnight that night, and suddenly I'm being the careful and cautious one, like, you know, and I'm saying, right, let's get you home, get your head down, back to the room, get your head down, like, you know, and so you're fit for stage tonight. And we were walking backstage, which is all tented area. We're walking up through the dressing rooms, and I could see a lad in a pair of shorts and a Fred Perry standing half out one of the tents. And as we got closer, just making eye contact, and he was reaching out to whatever, like, you know. And as we got close, I seen the Ocean Coliseum sign outside the dressing room, and just naturally started talking and started chatting, and then suddenly it's like, you know, I said, well, what's the story? How come you're playing 5:30 on a Friday evening? He said, look, we're down to play in Seoul tonight. They were flying to Korea, and this was just tacked on the end, so they put us in here. We're now waiting on a flight to Seoul to go and play our gig at Seoul tonight, like, you know. So suddenly it was like, Tim, hang on here, you know, let's not go back to the room. Yeah, the boys have a rider, you know, we have to finish that before they get to the airport, like, you know. But yeah, just accidents like that. But yeah, Tim, to me, seemed like he was bigger in Japan at the time than he was in London. But again, to me, there's 1,000,001 DJs like Tim in London. You know, he got a lucky break and he made the most of it, and he is pretty good, you know. He's a genius lad, but he was huge in Japan, like, you know, everybody knew him in Japan. So it was, again, quick succession, those three things: the festival barbecue with the locals, the punk gig with the Solution, and then my mate's a superstar in Japan, like, you know. So I don't think I thought about quitting or going home again, like, you know. Affect the language, that'll come, I'll manage that.
But even during the World Cup, you would have seen a couple of local Drogheda boys, you know, playing in the World Cup, you know.
Oh, look, it was magical, like, you know. Gary Kelly and Ian Hart, I'll never get a first game against the Cameroon in Niigata, and just amazing. Two local lads. Here I am in Japan attending the World Cup, and here's two boys from Drogheda, like, you know. But that whole, and again, it touches on the difference between us. It's the expectation. You know, England go to a World Cup, they expect to win it. They're there to win it, you know. We know we're not going to win the World Cup. We're here for a good time, you know. We're here to party. Yeah, hopefully our team plays well and does itself justice and gives us something to cheer about. But the little stories that especially the World Cup. I mean, I was in a pub one night. I mean, there was a few obvious pubs that the Irish crew went to, and although they were stopping in different hotels all around the place. But I was in a pub one night, and Shay Given's dad was there with his crew, with friends and the whole lot. And every pub we were in, a TV crew would come in the doors at any given time, like, you know. You might be just sitting there and talking and chitting and chatting and the whole lot. And TV, suddenly the cameras are in. It could be Japanese, could be Chinese, American or whatever, you know. And they'd come steaming in and they say, ole, 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 you know, singing on cue, like, you know. But I was in the company one night when it was, for me personally, I just thought it was beautiful. It was magical. And the story was told, Shay Given's dad, where an incident like that happened just a short time ago, and Shay Given was on the phone to his dad, going, Dad, I saw you on the telly, And I'm like, what? We're here watching you on the telly. We're here watching you on the telly, you know. But that's the beauty of it, you know. He's performing at a World Cup, you know, and the highlight for him was seeing his dad on the telly, like drinking in a pub in Tokyo, you know. It's just beautiful. And that's the difference in us as fans, I believe, like, you know, and it's expectation, I think, is the biggest downfall for them.
Yeah, ole, ole, ole. And that leads me to St. Patrick's Day. And that's where you met your future wife, Kerry, Japanese born and bred, Irish dancer. St. Patrick's Day in an Irish pub in London.
Yeah,
what's the chances of that?
Not just any old Irish pub either, yeah. The Victoria at the bottom of Holloway Road, yeah. So we're back in London now, and you know, what's the chances is right. I mean, it shouldn't have happened. It never should have happened. It was about 11:30 at night. I've been drinking from 11:30 that morning. Went out early to wait for the lads, Gaz, and then we're walking as motorbike couriers in London, yeah. I knew Gaz wouldn't stay till the end of the day anyway, like, you know. I knew he'd get till about lunchtime and he'd knock off and join me, but which he duly did. But yeah, just done a proper pub crawl around Camden, Holloway Road, Archway, proper Irish areas in North London, and yeah, we actually went down the bottom of Holloway Road from Archway about 11 o'clock that night, went to a pub, I can't remember the name, but it changes all the time anyway, and it was jammers. There was no way we were getting in, you know, too many, packed to the rafters. Bouncers told us, no chance, lads, there's no way. So, right, we'll carry on down to where I met Carrie. We'll go on down to the Victoria, which we did, and went in, and there was Irish dancing taking place from the Camden Irish Centre. There was a school in there for Irish dancing, and Carrie was part of that, living and working in London for 2 years, and yeah, got on the chat up, like, you know. It was 2002. It was 17th of March 2002. So I was already booked to go to the World Cup, you know, in June. And that was me in, like, you know, oh, I'm going to Japan. Yeah, I'm going to Japan in end of May, June, like, you know. So that even though I was 3 sheets to the wind, something made me hold it together and try my best anyway, and it worked anyway. Well, I tell the story, like, you know, I decided there and then immediately, I thought, I have to play this cool, you know, this is a Japanese girl, and I want to make it happen, like, you know. And I tell the story like I would to you or anybody else in her presence, that I was a complete gentleman. And now when that pub closed, we went across the road to the Lord Nelson. It was a late bar in the Lord Nelson, like till 2:30 or whatever, and dancing. And so I got her out the first slow set on the floor, you know, as a complete gentleman, and she jumps in, complete gentleman, literally me arse. She said, the first time you had me out on the floor, your hands dropped onto me arse, you were squeezing me arse. And I go, well, that's me being a gentleman. But yeah, like, it shouldn't have happened, you know. We shouldn't have been in that pub that night, and you know, the chances were, you know, 5 million to 1 of me and Carrie meeting that night. But you know, so it happened, and like most things in my life, it happened, and you just grab it and run with it, yeah. Pulling like a dog.
Yeah, some odds all right, Baz, but if anyone was going to get them odds, it was going to be you. I just want to go back to Japan, Baz, because you know, you always speak so highly of Japan, the culture, and, you know, the people, but you did suffer institutionalized racism over there as well. Absolutely,
yeah. I've told you before, and again, it's there, it's everywhere. You know, I'm not just saying it's an English thing. Japan is one of the most racist countries in the world. It's a different kind of racism. It's you know, it's naive. They're so insular as a country. There's very little outside influence, you know, so any different, you know, to them is fair game, you know, which is not right. I mean, I'm saying it's different kind of racism. It's naive because they're an insular, but that doesn't excuse it, you know. It makes it worse even if if you look at it that way, yeah, there's no excuse for racism. But yeah, definitely, you always felt, and no matter how long I would have stayed there and lived there, and my wife being Japanese and my children Japanese born, I would always have been an outsider. I would always have been seen as an outsider. There's no other way that's going to be, like, you know. And so it's not direct, and I wasn't shouted in the street. I mean, I can't ever in my life, anyway, I've been called a tick paddy, like, you know. So, like I said to you, in the workplace, it was disguised as a joke. And but in Japan, it was pretty blatant without shouting racial slurs at you, you know. It was just pretty in your face, blatant. You know, I've seen it on defaced documents, paperwork. I mean, like, Japan is all rules and regulations, and you know, there's something would get passed around by neighbours, a local community sheet for checking something that, you know, is that all right on your side? You know, let's say communal dumping or whatever, the litter area or something, you know. And yeah, I unbelievable. I've seen that defaced by an anonymous neighbour, you know, just something on there that's directly aimed at me, you know, and that was, but then that's even hurtful to carry, like, you know. She would be stunned at that kind of level, like, you know, because she maybe wouldn't notice it like I would notice it, but there you go, there's the proof for you, like, you know. So yeah, on that level, you'll always be an outsider. I've had to stay there for another 20 years, you know, with a permanent visa, residence visa, you know, through marital status. It never would have changed my standing in the country, like, you know. So yeah, but then on the flip side, here we are now back in Ireland. I've gone full circle, and you know, you just experience it at different levels the whole time. But
Baz, before we go into that, because it is something I want to touch on, before we finish, you obviously told your brother John, or Ginger as we know him as, you know, that because he'd been over there, which I never went over to visit in Japan. He'd been over there, so you know, this conversation may have come up, because I remember meeting him one day down the town or in a pub, and he said to me, I said, well, any whooping Baz, because he probably, you know, I don't know if social media was it. Yeah, it was early days of social media, maybe. And it's only whooping Baz, and he says, oh, he's going to be a daddy, you know. And I says, oh, great, you know. But he says, I've told him, you know, like, you know, the child is going to be Reilly in Japan, but make sure that you give him a Japanese first name, because, you know, he doesn't want to be going through, you know, institutionalized racism, you know, because he's going to be, you know, level, half Japanese, half Irish. And I says, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Oh yeah, that's a good idea. And then I met him, and he says, that
was an accident.
He says, it's a boy. He said, he's after ringing, you know, this was a couple of months later. Baz rang, he says, he's a daddy, it's a boy, you know. And I says, what's he going to call him? And he said, Liam. So his advice went out the window. So Liam Reilly was born, and you also have Rudy Reilly, your daughter, the apple of your eye. And you know, Liam and like your wife has, you know, you've all settled here now. But Baz, the reason you come home, because, you know, you always told me when you come home on holidays, or when you come home when your father sadly passed away, that you were never going to come home. Japan was going to be it. But a nuclear disaster happened, and, you know, was that the reason you decided, you know, I'm moving home?
Well, yeah, it was certainly the catalyst. It made us, for the first time, think about moving. So, and, you know, even even Carrie, who, you know, more so than me, like, it was just basically you're checking radiation levels every day. We're just, you know, we were talking in a whole new different language with terminology. It was all about millisieverts and you know, what's the levels today? Like, you know, I suppose like people talking about the COVID cases and all this carry on now at the moment. That was us. We were living in a registered hotspot for radiation. It was a good couple of 100 kilometers away from Fukushima, you know, but that's the seriousness of it. Like, you know, that thing's gone up and it's gone out and it's gone everywhere, carried by the weather and everything. Like, you know, it wasn't restricted to one small area. So that was definitely what started us thinking about moving. But I'll go back to the kids, and again, it's just following on from how I was perceived or how I felt in Japan as a non-Japanese. And unfortunately, you know, nice story about Ginger telling you about giving me advice on give the kid a Japanese name, like, you know. But yeah, a Japanese first name would not have improved his situation, you know, for what Ginger was trying to avoid, like, you know. I was fully conscious from that moment that my kids are half Irish, half Japanese. They're always going to be different. They're always going to be different in school. You know, again, kids, it's you know, it's innocent. It's just kids at school, natural, one having a pop at another, but like, you know, you're going to be different to the rest of us. So I always made him aware as he was growing up, going to school over there, that, you know, these things could happen and just to deal with them and how to deal with them, like, you know. But Hiroshi, being called Hiroshi wouldn't have saved them from that or any other name. Yeah, we did give them Japanese middle names. So his name is Liam Yusuke Reilly. But and that was fine. It was actually Carrie wanted an Irish name anyway, yeah. She said, I want an Irish name. And I said, right, Liam. She loved it. Brilliant, job done. There was no other names in the hat. Then Rudy came along 4 years later. I mean, since I was 13 years old, I was convinced I was going to have twins and they were going to be called Rico and Rudy. And so Liam wasn't called Rico. He wasn't a twin, but certainly when I knew I was having a daughter, Rudy kind of popped back in, only to the back of my mind. I thought, this ain't going to happen in Japan. You know, when I thought of it all my life, I didn't think I'd be living in Japan with a Japanese wife. So I thought, geez, how am I going to pull this one off, you know? So I kind of let it lie, you know. I'd actually said to Carrie, I said, I was a few years in Japan now. I liked a lot of things about Japan, but I said, let's give her a Japanese name because I liked Japanese names, girls' names. Girls' names are really, really cute and lovely to me. Kiyomi and little ones like that, you know. So, yeah, let's give her a Japanese name. And Carrie said, no, I want an Irish name. Okay. So I think I started with Siobhan. Yeah, I said, oh, well, Siobhan, you know. And she said, no, Siobhan. And this is definitely lost in translation, you know. This is how difficult life in Japan can be. Siobhan, Carrie says, no, that's like, and she does it with she just displayed it to me, going, Siobhan means I'm knackered. In Japanese, yeah, Siobhan. You know, I'm knackered, I'm bollocksed. Can't have that. That won't work. A Japanese person hears the name Siobhan, is that they're going to see her in a different light. I said, okay, how about Sinead? No, that's not going to work either because death in Japan is Shinde. Yeah, so Sinead is not... A Japanese person, introduce your daughter as Sinead, they're just going to think death immediately, like, you know, so that's not going to work. So I finally had a little more of a thing, Grania. You know, Grania's a lovely name, like, you know, and let's go Grania. And she liked it, yeah. It was great. And 2 weeks later, we decided we were going with Grania. And we went round to her mum's, visiting her parents, yeah. And I seen the conversation taking place with my limited Japanese. Even then, her and her mum were having a conversation. I'm sitting at the table as we are now, and I can hear them talking and understand half the conversation. They're talking about the child and what we're going to name her. And I could see Carrie telling her mother, Grania. And I can see her mother's reaction. And her mother's going, Grania? Neko-chan. Neko-chan. And I'm like, Neko-chan? Neko-chan? Neko is a cat in Japan, yeah? So I can hear her saying, you can't call it Grania. That's what a cat does. And I'm like, Jesus Christ, no way. Surely a cat says meow all over the world. Don't tell me a Japanese cat says Grania. But, and it's not the case. It does say meow in Japan, yeah. But in Japan, Japanese language, they've onomatopoeia, a word for every sound, a word for every action. And when the cat stretches itself and arches its back in front of the fire or whatever, and this is known as Grania. And I just threw my hand. I said, that's it. I said, forget about it. I said, I'm done with Irish names. No more Irish names. How about Rudy? And of course, then they want the romance, oh, what does it mean? What's the meaning behind Rudy? Like the Celtic meaning behind Liam and all the beautiful Celtic meanings behind Grania. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, how do I romanticize the Jamaican rude boy? Like, you know, the Jamaican revolutionary. And that kind of went for a while. And, but eventually, somehow I got away with it. So it's Rudy Yukino Riley. But, yeah. So, but I always, you know, made them aware over there that they would be different to others in school, and you know, they'd be called out on it, like, you know, and just prepare. You can only prepare people. It's going to happen regardless, like I say. And so just to kind of prepare them for it and make them aware.
Yeah, and you return home, Japanese wife, 2 children, and they all embrace Ireland, its history, its culture.
Yeah.
But institutionalised racism, as you spoke about the television there, you know, it begins all over. But this time not for you, this time for them.
Yeah.
In your hometown. Now, and there's so many positives of you coming home, Baz. From a personal point of view, you know, I had someone else to go out with. But that's me just being
selfish now, yeah.
But, and we've had some great nights since you come home. But it also gave you time to spend time with your mum, who's since sadly passed away, and your family. So that's lovely as well. But you know, are they dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, and how does it affect you?
Yes, is the honest answer. Now, I don't want to over-dramatise it or over-sensitise it or anything, you know, but, you know, we all can have an opinion on racism, and until you suffer it, until you feel it, you know, you can't truly, fully understand it, like, you know. And, you know, things like we wouldn't notice, like even on the flip side, that community document I spoke about in Japan, where it was defaced and there was a comment written on it, and I knew it was directly aimed at me, just random and obscure, but it was, you know, it was obvious. You know, Carrie may not have noticed that, or, you know, wouldn't see those things, but, you know, and without being paranoid or anything, you know, I see it as obvious and feel it, but you can't. What can you do about it? You know, over here, but more recently with that lunatic in America, Trump, and how things have kicked off over there, and how he's made it okay to be racist for American people anyway. Yeah, you know, he's normalised it. Absolutely, he's normalised it. You know, it's okay. It's something to be proud of for them now. Yeah, many of them over there. Again, not everybody. I don't want to be tarring everyone with the same brush, but you know, there was attacks on Asian people happening. You know, in the street, crossing of the traffic light. You can see them. The videos are all there online and the whole lot. You know, and it's just. You know, he was giving people license to just go and lash out at people for no reason, you know, just for the way they look or where they're from, you know. They could be born and bred in America. Half these ignorant people don't even realise that, yeah. But, yeah, that happened here. That was happening here in Ireland. on the back of that, there was attacks on Asian women here in Ireland, in Dublin, yeah? They were getting attacked in the street just for no other reason other than being Asian, yeah? And, yeah, Carrie was noticing these things and feeling these things, and the lowest for me, one Tuesday, Wednesday afternoon, she needed to go down to town. She had to go down to town for business, like, and, she asked me to go with her, which, nothing major. She could have handled it by herself, like, but she asked me to go and explain that she wasn't comfortable going down to town in Drogheda. Now, again, I don't want to sound over dramatic, but that was the reality of it, like, she's going about her everyday life in Drogheda, thinking that somebody just might make a comment, or somebody just might, God forbid, lash out or whatever, like, and that was just the reality to me, like, here in my own hometown, not London, not Japan, not even Dublin, like here in Drogheda, where there's a fear in her just going about her everyday business that something like that could possibly happen. It may never, but, just to have that fear and be wary, having to be wary of something like that is kind of shocking, like, So, yeah, that's the reality of it. But with the kids now, it's different. I mean, we came back to Ireland, and it's a very different Ireland to the one that I left, as we've said, because you knew everybody here in Drogheda anyway, yeah. But now, like, the schools are all mixed raced and the whole lot, so there should be a wider acceptance for my kids going to school here now, But yeah, man, I hear it. I hear it on the football pitch with Liam playing football, and it's get the Chinese fella, like, and it's the same as, get the red fella, but it's a way of identifying somebody, like, but when I hear that from kids on the pitch, fair enough, kids football, but yeah, I've witnessed it from the parents standing on the sideline, get the Chinese fella, like, so it's, again, it's there, it's underlined, and it's not going anywhere. It's not going anywhere with lunatics like Trump, and then that your other man in London, coming out and condemning these Sunday night, like, he's more racist than anybody. So with these guys in power and these guys in the spotlight and leading the press conferences, I mean, it's not going anywhere. Like, it's making it more normal for people.
Yeah, but I think it has to be highlighted as well, Baz, because I've pulled people up and they go, "Oh, I'm not racist." So, well, you've just made a racist comment, And he goes, "Yeah, but and I go, "Yeah, but it'll affect the person that you're making the comment to, Oh, he's no sense of humour, And I says, "Well, if you have been called a Tig Paddy or a Mick or something," I says, "what would you do?" I wouldn't have that, So when the shoe's on a different foot, sometimes it's a little different. But Baz, it's been brilliant to have someone into the studio. But before I let you go, instead of having someone on a screen in front of me, before I let you go, I have a Celtic Soul time machine. Now, you're not a Celtic man, although you've been to Celtic Rangers and you've been to Glasgow and you were at the Ireland Scotland game with me and so forth. But if you could jump into that time machine, does it take you back to a gig, or does it take you back to a football match or a moment, or where does it take you, or a few points, or where does it take you?
Look, there's just been, as you know, there's been so many and too many, fabulous, great gigs, and and I can't. I'm not going to give you one because I can't. Football, for example. I've only got a handful. I'm QPR. I was born to suffer, yeah? I can count them on one hand. And Robbie Keane equalising against Germany in the 2002 World Cup in Japan, that in injury time. That was just unbelievable. I ended up on Match of the Day that night. I've never seen it. Maybe some people out there have. I've never managed to get my hands on the video. But that was an amazing moment. We had another one then when Shane Long scored against the Germans again, Viva, and we were sitting right behind the goals, yeah. Now, that was magical for me, but it was because Liam was there beside me, you know, and I said, look, I was 32 years old before I had a moment like this in a stadium, which was 2002, Robbie Keane. I said, I was 32 years old before I had a moment of absolute unadulterated ecstasy, like, you know. And then all the talk about London here, in the 12 years I lived in London, I never went to Wembley. I'd never been to Wembley in all that time. Yeah, I tried to go once for the England-Ireland International. Couldn't get tickets. Ended up in Griffin Park the night before, Tuesday night, under-21s, England v Ireland. I didn't know. Tony Cousins, I think, was playing for Ireland. Shearer, Rod Wallace, all these boys were in the England lineup and they hammered us, but it was great. There was 5,000 Irish fans over for the main game. I'd never been to Wembley until I came back from Japan and QPR got into the playoff final against Derby. And they murdered us. We were down to 10 men in the first half, and they murdered us. And Richard Dunn that day was unbelievable. Cleared everything that went in the box, and 0-0. We broke away in the 90th minute. Bobby Zamora scores that goal. You know, another ecstatic moment in a football stadium for me. Yeah. So on the football level, they're few and far between, and there's just been too many gigs. We had a fabulous one with a man I love very much, is Ken Bood, at the Ska Festival, myself and yourself one night in Dingwalls in Camden. You know, there's been others that too hard to mention, but too many to mention, I should say. Yeah. Yeah. So Time Machine, I wouldn't go back. I'd go forward to the year that Ireland win the World Cup and QPR the Premier League. So no going back for me.
It's a time machine, not a magic machine. Bazz, it's been a pleasure to get your story recorded. I think the listeners are going to love it. So thanks very much for letting us into your Celtic soul. And for once, you know, when I have a guest on, I say to them, well, hopefully when I'm back in Glasgow or hopefully when I'm in America, we can hook up for a pint, you know. But today, Bazz, I say, hopefully we can hook up the weekend for a pint. Let's
wrap up here and go to the pub now. Come on.
Sounds like a good idea.
All right. Thank you. Cheers, Andrew.
Wow, a one-on-one interview. And who better to have it with one of my best mates, Bazz, in the studio, fully vaccinated, mask wearing, mask off for the interview, mask back on, and away he goes. But I'm hoping to hook up with him again in a beer garden over the weekend for another chat. It's been so long since I've done a one-on-one interview. The last one was with the Hunscarper himself, Alan Thompson, and Paul Bunn, no stranger to the odd goal against Rangers as well, in Thailand back in March 2020 at the Land of Smiles Festival, which we hope to get back on in 2023 because 2022 is just going to come too soon for us to get it organised, and there's still a lot of uncertainty around the COVID pandemic at the moment, especially in Thailand. But look, hopefully we're coming out of that twilight zone now and lockdowns for good. Folks, if you're enjoying the podcast, don't forget to visit the Celtic Fanzine TV on YouTube and hit the subscribe button. And check out our playlist where you'll find all our shows: Talk from the Terrace, Celtic AM, Millish Meets, Celtic Soul Shots, The Grand Ale History, and bits and pieces from Celtic from the press conferences, and also you'll find all the Celtic Soul podcasts. We have a Charlie Gallagher tribute coming up. Charlie, of course, you know, legendary Glasgow Irish figure, legend of Celtic, Lisbon Lion, you know, he'd done it all, and an absolute gentleman, and someone I call a good friend who had always time to talk to the fans, and just being in his company was always a pleasure, with his sidekick John Fallon, Charlie McGinley, Tommy Stevenson. You know, all these boys will miss him, and they'll miss their conversations, you know, and we'll all miss him. And I'm sure when we do record the tribute for him and put it out, it will be well received. And don't forget, folks, all the podcasts are available across all platforms, so please follow or subscribe on your preferred provider, and all podcasts are available, both audio and video, on our website, CelticFanzine.com. And if you're on the website, you can see a little icon coming up, and you can subscribe to the newsletter, which will keep you up to date with all we're up to. Please follow us on social media, folks. You'll find us on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook and Twitter. And you'll find all our audio, video and articles and a few bits and pieces and a bit of promo stuff on that on across them pages. And if you're enjoying our free content and you can afford a small donation, please click the donate button on CelticFanzine.com, which allows us to continue to produce quality, independent Celtic fan journalism across all our platforms. and hopefully soon back in the flesh at a live event and maybe a pre-match Celtic AM. Thanks as always to the show's producer Ronan McQuillan, our video editor Daniel Faulkner, Aaron Boyle for steering the good ship on the ground in Glasgow while we're away, Richie, our graphic designer who's off enjoying a wee holiday at the moment, and all our fanzine and website contributors, and to all our guests who've joined us this week for chat, and of course you the listeners, viewers and readers for their continued support, and a big thank you to my mate Bazz. Well folks, enjoy the weekend. As I said earlier, Preston North End come to Glasgow to play Celtic. I'll be watching on Celtic TV again via my virtual season ticket. Kick-off Saturday is 5:30, and before that you can get the Celtic B team who kick off their season against Bonnyrigg Rose Athletic. And again, I can't say how jealous I am about those lucky 2,000 Celtic fans who'll be inside the stadium. Enjoy every minute. The paradise return. I can't wait to have my one. Let's hope more fans are back in for the big game on Tuesday against Midtjylland in the Champions League. What a bonus that would be for Celtic, because a couple of injuries, you know, the squad looks very thin, it looks very young. We go into the game with hope in our hearts and hopefully we can pull off something, but we'll wait and see. Look, we'll wait and see, and we'll no doubt we'll be chat a bit on Talk from the Terrace and on next week's podcast. So folks, that's it for another Celtic Soul podcast, and as I said, enjoy the weekend, and we'll play out with Japanese band The Solution.
Chelsea's rising last. Get your basket on. Get out and have some fun. Macho with me. Get a hint on your day. There was a time dream. Now the dream is real. Rising to let up at the crib. It's been a long, now it's time to explode. Well, I found it into a brand new world. But it's so touching. With the clothes are casual, it's gonna be alright. Can I hit on your day? Come on, burn your day. Come on, burn your day. Come on, have it. Come on, get a chance. Don't let it pass. Come on, burn your day. Come on, burn your day. Come on, have it. Come on, come on, chance. Don't let it pass. Come on, by the day. Chance and rising last. Catch basket on. Get out and have some fun. Macho with me.